Buffalo Bills running back James Cook is trying to become a star of HBO Hard Knocks. We're talking about it today on the Ralph Rant. Let's go.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant, your source for hard-hitting Buffalo Bills takes. Now, here's your host of the Ralph Rant, that veteran watcher of generations of Bills teams, the prophet who predicted Josh Allen's greatness, that opinionated so-and-so you've walked out on parties because of, the Ralph.
Welcome to the Ralph Rant. I am your host, the Ralph. Thank you ever so much for being here today. We are talking about Buffalo Bills running back James Cook making history as the very first Bills player to ever sit out of training camp over money. It's never happened before in the Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane era, and that should tell you something to start off with. But I'm going to cover this quickly today in my normal 5 segments, and I'm going to start out with how the Cook recipe has gone wrong, and then we're going to talk about a matter of bad timing, and then the overcooked truth about the situation, and how this entire issue and scenario is not in the Bills Playbook. And finally, I'm going to predict the outcome of this situation for you. So before I do that, I want to ask that you subscribe to the channel, hit like on the video. Really helps the channel. We are progressing very well here in the early stages of our formation, and we're going to keep this going all season long. Thanks again so much for watching, but let's get into this subject now. All right, let's get into this issue and start out with a few truths. James Cook is certainly the best running back that the Buffalo Bills have rostered in the Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott era. There's no question about that. He was spectacular last season for the Bills. Then early this offseason, he indicated his desire to get paid, entering the 4th year of his rookie contract. He wants to be paid the kind of money that Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are getting. And let's do some comparisons very quickly to determine if he warrants the kind of money that they're getting. Let's talk about the size first. James Cook is 5'11", 190 pounds. Saquon Barkley outweighs him by 44 pounds at 6 foot and 234 pounds. And then Derrick Henry is just 6'2" and 252 pounds. Those backs, Barkley and Henry, are the type of bell cow backs you can run and have on the field all game long. They have the size to be able to do some pass protection. James Cook is limited when you compare him to those backs. And then let's just talk about the stats. Now, James Cook, in his 3 years with the Bills, has had 89 carries, 237 carries, and then 207. He had fewer carries in 2024 than in 2023. His yardage gained was 507 yards in his first season. Then 1,122 yards in his second season. And then he regressed to 1,009 yards in the third season. He did score 16 touchdowns in 2024. That was a big point that got the attention of people, and it is a point I know he is standing on in order to try to get paid. Now, if we talk about these other ball players, Derrick Henry in 2024 had 325 carries for 1,921 yards and 42 catches. And by the way, Cook had 32 catches in 2024. Saquon Barkley in 2024 had 345 carries for 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 33 catches. Guys, these numbers don't compare. And James Cook is not the type of back that these guys are. He's not a 3-down back. He doesn't provide pass protection. He is certainly not getting their numbers. So how is it that he is figuring he warrants that kind of money? Well, we're going to talk about it here in the next segment. Stick with me. Now, the situation with James Cook got its start in the offseason when he came out publicly demanding the Bills pay him a salary commensurate with backs such as Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. That would be about $15 million per season. And that was a little bit uncomfortable because you don't often see Bills players doing that, going out publicly. But Brandon Beane smoothed it over pretty well, saying, we love Jimbo. We want to have him here. We're talking with him. We'd rather not that it be public, that we're trying to negotiate this, but it's okay. The guy's got to do what he feels he's got to do. And even though Beane smoothed it somewhat, then we get to the OTAs, the voluntary portion, and James Cook was not in attendance. So he's sticking with those demands. But then the offseason continues, and we get to mandatory OTAs, and James Cook was in attendance for the mandatory portion of the offseason training. So we figured at this point, okay, he is playing ball. They are talking behind closed doors. He's there. He's showing good faith. Maybe something's going to get done as we move along. And you might have thought that, but the truth still exists that he does not compare to the backs that he wants to get paid like. So then we get to training camp. And of course, training camp, obviously being mandatory, obviously being very important. And James Cook is there. He shows up. He's bells on. He's performing well in practice. And it is thought at this point, well, it's still behind closed doors. Maybe something gets done. Maybe he is going to go in and play the season, and maybe they'll do something in season. Who knows? But it looks like they are together. They're playing ball. They're not arguing. It looks like a path is established. But then on day 9 of training camp, he announces he's sitting out for business purposes. Now, what's the timing of this? Why 9 days into training camp would you decide at that point that you're not going to participate? I think the answer is pretty simple. That timing might allow his situation to appear as maybe the final segment on the first installment of Buffalo Bills preseason on Hard Knocks on HBO. And perhaps if HBO gets a hold of this situation, which undoubtedly they have, and makes a thing about it in the first episode, and that's going to be aired to the entire country, and I believe all 31 other NFL teams, which makes me think that he's trying to get it out in the public again, now via HBO, and also makes me think that he'll take his $15 million from any team that wants to offer it to him. And this is extremely bad timing because this is not how Buffalo Bills normally operate. And this is a team that's on the edge of perhaps capturing its first world championship and bringing home the Vince. And you're starting this shit at this point in training camp. We used to talk about a term called Billsy. That's a Billsy thing to do. And Billsy used to be a negative term. Talked about bad losses, giving games away at the end, whatever it may be. But over the last few years, Billsy has become a good term because the Bills do good things. So this is not a Billsy move, and it's horribly timed. Let's talk about it some more. Stick with me. All right, let's talk about some truths here. And one truth I will reiterate, which is the fact that James Cook is the best Buffalo Bills running back to be rostered under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. Certainly. And last season is what he's basing most of this on because we went over the stats and they're all really in last season. But he was running behind an awesome offensive line last season. And playing with a guy that ended up being the MVP in quarterback Josh Allen. So much of his success has to be attributed to how good the offensive line is. And of course, we know Sean McDermott concentrates on the trenches. He's always said that's where ball games are won and lost. Ray Davis did well behind that line also. How much more success would he have had if he'd gotten the number of carries that James Cook had gotten? We're not going to know that, but let's stick with that truth that he, James Cook, was running behind and could be this season running behind the best offensive line in the National Football League. But he doesn't want to take $12 million a year for that. He wants 15. And if he goes someplace that will give him 15 and getting $3 million more per year, but he only plays 3 or 4 more years because on a lesser team that's got the cap space, because they don't have great players otherwise, to be able to bring him on for what he wants and pay him Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry style of money, he's going to end up getting injured at 5'11" and 190. And he'll be out of the league, and he won't be making the $12 million the Bills give him. In fact, he may lose money by going to take more with another team where he plays for less time. And why is he doing this? In part, I believe he is getting advice from agents, but I believe his brother Dalvin Cook is also talking to him because Dalvin Cook doesn't want his brother to end up like Dalvin did with going through and playing with the Vikings and then becoming a free agent, getting signed for big money and doing nothing for another team. And essentially, his career might almost be over now. That's Dalvin Cook. And that might be the advice he's getting from his brother. But if he's smart, he should take the Ralph's advice. Take the $12 million, make your home in Buffalo, stick there, stay healthy, run, and win Super Bowls. I don't know if he'll listen, but let's move on. So this situation has put Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and the rest of the Bills in a bind. Brandon Beane was interviewed this morning on WGR Radio before practice and informed the interviewers that James Cook did not tell them he was not going to be at practice yesterday. They discovered it just before. If I've determined anything about this Buffalo Bills administration and Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, is that these are both really good guys. They don't seem like the type that's interested in screwing a player. They don't play games. I think they're very straight shooters. And certainly the family atmosphere that's been created at One Bills Drive and pervades through the locker room has made it a situation where when the Bills are talking about negotiating contracts, it's not out in the news. When the Bills re-sign someone, they're not announcing what the number was. Someone has to find out through their media contacts or whatever, and that's how we find out what's going on with their actual contracts. But the Bills don't make those things public, and they certainly don't make any squabbles about contract issues public. It's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's classy. It's how you do business. You don't air your dirty laundry around. And number two, it's a situation where players coming to the team can see how they operate. They can see that players don't get screwed around, that stuff isn't made public, and that you can trust these guys. So the problem that this James Cook situation creates is not only for the situation with James Cook not being available to the Bills, not being in practice, not making progress in the preseason, but James Cook is also trying to force the Bills to set an ugly precedent that they have not made before in acquiescing to a player's demands that have been made publicly for whatever it might be, in this case, contract remuneration. So the fact that he is trying to do this is challenging Brandon Beane not only on the situation with James Cook, but also challenging how the Bills have done business. And I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to take a shot at it in my next segment. Stick with me. So it's a volatile situation at the Bills with James Cook. And predicting the outcome is probably pretty difficult. I think, to me, it might be easier to predict what won't happen. And I predict the Bills will not be paying James Cook $15 million per season. They're not going to do it, and especially not going to do it based on the scenario that this has all come up under. Because no matter how much Brandon Beane likes James Cook or not, the Bills are not interested in setting a precedent and caving to a player's demands. And they're not going to do that. Now, what do I think will happen? The most likely outcome, I think, is that this will be quietly settled in the next few days, where James Cook will be accepting very close to the money the Bills have been offering. And perhaps there might be years on the deal, which helps Cook also. I'm hoping that is how it turns out. James Cook does well behind this line. He needs to be at the Bills. Now, what is the other possible outcome? Well, there could be a trade. Brandon Beane won't screw around with this. And they cannot have this distraction in camp when they're trying to go win this trophy this year. Especially when you've got hard knocks in the house. So one way or the other, this is going to get solved quickly, I believe. Either James Cook accepting the Bills' money, doing so quietly, getting back to practice and getting this behind us, or we're going to hear about a trade. And we've got some guys hurt in the receiver room. And no, I did not mention Terry McLaurin's name. Well, I guess I just did. I don't think the Bills can afford him. But let's watch and see what happens. Anyway, that's going to do it for this quick episode of the Ralph Rant talking about James Cook and that situation. I do ask that you subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. It helps us out a great deal here at the Ralph Rant. And we'll be bringing you content like this all season long. So until the next show, I am the Ralph. This is the Ralph Rant. Go Bills. I'm out.